All right, I assume everything's working. I assume the video is going, the microphone's going, the headphones are going. I can hear myself, but that's because I'm sitting right here. I can hear my own voice. I can't really hear it through the computer, but that doesn't really work that way. So I'm just going to assume that everyone can see me and hear me, and we are here on a Thursday night for the Panther-Lair Show. Thursday night edition, 8 p.m. edition, changing things up a little bit. Changed the night of the show because of the Pitt basketball game last night. I wouldn't expect anybody to watch a live Panther-Lair show at 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. in the middle of a 7 o'clock basketball game. So that part, that made it easy to change the night. And then the last couple of weeks, we did these 8 p.m. shows. Did it one week, I think, because the Pitt basketball game, the West Virginia game was starting. And then the next week, I think I just did it because I wanted to. And kind of liked how that felt, kind of liked how that worked out. So we thought we'd do it at 8 o'clock here. Since we were changing the day, we might as well do a different time as well. Maybe we'll stick with 8 o'clock going forward. We'll see what happens. But if you're worried about it, if you're like, dude, stop changing the time, you're going to mess me up. I'm going to miss the show if you keep changing the time and the date around. Well, one easy way to avoid that is if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, where we put all of our video content. And, whether it's the daily morning Pitt videos, Monday through Friday, this live show that we do every week. And even if we change the days or change the times, we still do it every week. Post-game shows for football, and we're going to do some for basketball as well. I think they have a lot of road games on weekends coming up, so maybe we'll do some post-game shows after those. Press conferences, post-game interviews, all that stuff. We have it right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And if you have notifications turned on, then you'll get an alert every time we do something here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So if we change the night for the live stream and all of a sudden it's Thursday night at 8 o'clock instead of Wednesday night at 8:30, well, you'll get a notification. You'll get an alert about it, and then you'll know, hey, I better tune in because they got a live stream going and I want to talk about it. So I want to tune in and join the comments and in the chat screen there. So like this video and subscribe. We appreciate that. And of course, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. We've got all the coverage right there at Panther-Lair.com. And message boards where Pitt fans are hanging out with other Pitt fans. And of course, this week, the message boards were bumping, as they pretty much have been nonstop since I don't even know when the last time they weren't bumping. But they were definitely going this week with signing day yesterday, and that's obviously a big topic tonight that we will talk about. We'll bring Jim Hammett in here shortly, and Jim can talk to us about what he thought of signing day. We'll talk about the recruits. We'll talk about the transfers. They just got another transfer tonight. And if you have comments about the recruiting class or the transfers, you have questions about the recruiting class or the transfers, you can join in the chat screen right there on the right-hand side of the screen. You can post your comment, post your question, and we'll take as many as we can during the course of this hour. And of course, if you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets answered, you can be a super chatter. Click the little dollar sign down at the bottom, kick a couple bucks to the podcast, and we will make sure we read yours. A lot of times we get a lot of comments and a lot of questions. We can't get to all of them, but we'll definitely get to the super chatters who go the extra mile. We had a live stream yesterday morning at 10 a.m. That was a lot of fun, a little signing day live stream, and we enjoyed that. And there was a lot of comments and questions in that, so hopefully you guys have some things to talk about tonight. All right, let's bring in our friend Jim Hammett. He from Panther-Lair.com. He hasn't been around in a couple of weeks. He was at West Virginia 2 weeks ago. Last week you were listening to 2 weeks ago you were with the Hillbillies. Last week you were listening to hillbilly music, right?
Yes.
What Appalachian thing are you doing tonight, Jim?
I don't know what. It's just probably like a normal Thursday night in Johnstown. I guess that's kind of hillbilly and Appalachian enough.
Opioids, and prescription drugs. Is that?
Yeah.
I guess that's not funny,
and
but
and some banjo music. Yeah.
That's not funny. But I had a friend who made a joke. We were talking about Tyler Childers the other day, and it was like, "Oh, did you hear the new Tyler Childers album? Oh, is that the one about doing prescription drugs because he hurt his back in the coal mine? Oh, that Tyler Childers album." So, I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, you got to make the references. But coal was big in Johnstown, right? Coal? No, steel. Oh, whatever. Who cares? Anyway, so it's been a while since we've chatted with you, but obviously the big thing that happened most recently, Jim. It was yesterday with signing day, and I mean, we can jump right into that. With obviously there's transfers to talk about, there's recruits to talk about. Pitt signed 19 recruits yesterday. What first blush, like single sentence approximation of this class. What do you, how do you describe it? What do you say about it?
I thought they did a really good job at building up the trenches. Signing 5 defensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen. There was obviously, that was targeted from June. We kind of knew that was kind of going to be their approach, and it was. And so, yeah, I think from that standpoint, they did a really good job of restocking the offensive and defensive lines. I mean, as for signing day itself, they started yesterday morning with 19 commitments. I wasn't sure there were going to be 19 commitments at the end. I thought it might have been 18, but it was, there was drama, but there wasn't drama. They were able to avoid the drama, and I think that was, on signing day, I think that's kind of what you want. Just not a lot of noise, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think they've by and large. I mean, Pitt's not really a school that ends up in a lot of dramatic situations on signing day. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty quiet. People have asked me like, "Oh, what was the craziest signing day thing you can think of?" And I mean, there was like Robert. I don't think Robert Foster was signing day. People bring up Robert Foster, but he committed like a different day. That wasn't a signing day thing. I can't. I told the story of February 2011 when I drove to Woodland Hills for Lafayette Pitts and Javante Pitts, and Juan Price was there flipping a coin, maybe flipping a coin between Ohio State and Pitt. I don't know. But so I went from there to McKeesport, where Delvon Simmons and Brandon Jackson, Brandon Jackson went to Texas Tech and Delvon Simmons went to Carolina. I think he ended up at Texas Tech eventually anyway, because it was this weird year where Texas Tech was somehow relevant in the WPIAL. And it was like only one year that this ever actually happened, because then I drove down to Clairton and Desmond Green committed to and signed with Texas Tech. And I was like, what are these guys going from like McKeesport and Clairton to Texas Tech? Like, what do you think Lubbock, Texas is going to be like? And I mean, Clairton and McKeesport, they are what they are. We understand what they are. I mean, if you're an old steel town along the Mon, you are, you've got a certain West Texas flair to you probably, but Lubbock, like, what do you think is going to happen when you go to Lubbock? And I don't, Desmond Green never even made it to Lubbock. I think Brandon Jackson did, but I don't think he ever did anything. And like I say, I think Delvon Simmons ended up but anyway, that was like the most lively signing day that I can really remember. I don't know, like, you've been on the boards a long time. Do you remember a signing day where you were like obviously you were glued to it because you were watching for all the names to come in and be official, but like with drama or waiting on certain guys, like, what's this guy gonna do? Do any jump out to you?
Not really. I mean, I think a lot of the situations were exactly what happened with like Francis Brew and Jeremiah Marcelin. It was just like there's guys you're not worried about, but you're like, okay, they might do something. There's something there. They just made a visit. So I mean, there's always situations like that. I mean, what was it, a couple of years ago? Sean Curtis, like, I think he was committed to Pitt, and just like he sent his fax to Ole Miss kind of like that day. I mean, that's the only one that, like, I mean, there's more obviously, but it doesn't happen a ton. I mean, usually the decommitments, like, it's Yasin Willis, it's like a week or two before. It's never like the day of or the night before. So I mean, but I mean, going into yesterday, I mean, there were two we weren't exactly sure about. There's no denying that. I mean, we were kind of watching those very, very closely. And I mean, I think at different points throughout the week leading up to signing day, it's like, I think Francis Brew might go, but then Marcelin might come to Pitt. Then I kind of reversed and thought it was the other way around. And, it ended up both of them coming to Pitt. So I think that was good work by the coaches, because I do think there were some serious threats there. I think, there was a reason those schools kept on them. And I think it was commendable for Pitt to kind of fight those off. And
I'm sure you watched Jeremiah Marcelin's Instagram Live, right?
Of course.
Yeah. And so according to his principal or whoever it was that was sort of the MC there, he was claiming that Marcelin was going to Maryland, that he made that decision already. I just thought he was pulling the hat trick, but according to that guy, he was going to Maryland. And yeah, I heard out of the weekend after the Michigan State official visit that it was going to be Michigan State for Brew. And so you're right. I mean, it is credit to the coaches and anybody else who got involved as far as keeping those guys locked in. I was thinking about I feel like Jordan Addison didn't sign until like Thursday or something. He signed. And what was weird about him is, like, sometimes you can, all right, the recruits being a pain in the butt, not really giving up much, or their parents aren't giving up much. So you call the school and you ask the not the superintendent, the athletic director, the secretaries are good. Like, so he's signing with Pitt, right? Is that, just, matter of fact type of thing. And his like athletic director or principal started being like real weird about, well, I don't know. We're going to have to see. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, you're an adult. You're like, okay, the kid wants to be wishy-washy about it. You're an adult. Like, why are you trying to play up the drama as well? It's kind of pathetic to, to go that route. Obviously, we know how that story turned out, but Chase Pine, do you remember in 2016, Chase Pine tried to make it dramatic and claim that he was thinking about Virginia Tech, or he was thinking about flipping around, but he never really did. I think Henry Miller too that year got pursued by Miami.
Yeah.
That was, I think that year, like part of the reason there was so much hype. I mean, it was obviously DeMar Hamlin was a big part of that. Flipping Aaron Matthews from Penn State was a big part of the hype, but and getting Keyshawn Camp late, I think was a big part of all the hype that built that year. But I think part of it also was just was holding off Virginia Tech for Pine and Miami for Miller, and then getting this random former Michigan commit, this Rashad Weaver guy. Like it just all was, it was all like coming together at the same time. I think Paris Ford had already committed like earlier that fall, and so there was a reason they sold a lot of season tickets that week after signing day. I mean, they were rolling. They had a lot of momentum, and those were all the good storylines. And like you say, this year, I mean, it ended up, the two areas of question marks ended up being, both going Pitt's way. And so I kind of, like you said, I predicted that Brew would go to Michigan State and Pitt would hold Marcelin. I ended up being wrong about one of those, but it went the right way. You mentioned about building in the trenches, and I can't get over, in particular, what they've done on the defensive line. I mean, like 8 guys coming in between recruits and transfers. I mean, it is a complete rebuild of the defensive line. I guess, we expect the transfers to play right away, right? I mean, are you thinking, I don't know, should we expect like Jasir Whittington and Francis Brew to get on the field as well? Because even though like they're adding 8 defensive linemen, they're not adding that, like they're only adding 1 veteran tackle. And so I think they've still got some depth issues there. It feels like a freshman might have to play at D tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we ended the season, Pitt had 3 scholarships, or, after the dust settled on the transfer portal, there was 3. It was, Sean Fitzsimmons, Isaiah Neal, and Elliot Donald, and that was it. And I mean, I think there's been talks of Nakai Johnson moving inside, and I mean, but they really only added Nick James and 3 freshmen. So, I mean, I think the opportunity exists that they might try to find another defensive tackle in the portal to maybe, eat up some snaps. But I mean, the way it looks, I mean, I think a freshman's going to have to play. And I mean, I think what we saw from this year, it's like they played a lot of freshmen. I mean, I don't think they're against playing freshmen. I mean, 3 linebackers played this year, like considerable amount. So, I mean, I think on that defensive side, if they need it and the situation calls for it, they'll do it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you normally don't expect a Pitt defensive line to need this kind of reinforcements. Pitt's been really good at keeping it well stocked. There's always been like that next guy in line, but there really isn't that next guy in line. I mean, they are thin. So yeah, I mean, I do think a freshman's going to have to play. I do think the possibility exists that another transfer's coming in. So yeah, I mean, it's a totally retooled line, but it was a great effort by Charlie Partridge in the past couple of weeks. I mean, he had to, hold on to one of his biggest commitments, and he had to do a lot of work in the transfer portal. So, in the past, 10, 14 days, he's been busy, and it really worked out well for him.
I was looking, just because I'm writing about this for the 321 column for tomorrow, between the recruiting classes of 2021, 22, and 23, they signed 4 tackles in those classes. So, I mean, it's not a surprise that their depth ended up this thin. And like of those 4, 2 were in the 2021 class. It was Elliot Donald and Dorian Ford. And Ford's not even playing defensive tackle anymore. So, I mean, you basically had 3 defensive tackles out of the last 3 classes prior to this year. I wonder, and it's hard to tell. I think we would have to ask the coaches. I wonder if they under-recruited defensive tackle because they had so many scholarships locked up with Tyler Bentley, Devin Danielson, David Green for so long. You know what I mean? With those guys being like 6, all 3 of them playing 6 years, that ate up. I mean, you can only commit so many scholarships to each position group. And so I wonder if they were hamstrung a little bit, because even if you look at like official visits, they didn't really bring anybody else in. Like they signed Sean Fitzsimmons in 22 and Isaiah Neal last year. They didn't really have any other defensive tackles even take official visits. So it's not like they were pushing hard for guys and they missed out on them. Like it's almost like they were content to sign one in those classes. And I wonder if it's because they had so many scholarships tied up with those other guys, but now it's coming back to bite them, largely because DeAndre Jules went into the transfer portal. Like, him going into the portal really took a giant chunk of their experience and production away. But it just doesn't make sense otherwise of why they would only sign 4 guys over 3 classes at a position where you need at least 2 on the field at all times, let alone being able to go 2 or 3 deep. Signing 4 over 3 classes doesn't make sense,
No, and I don't think that was the only position that really happened, because we talk about building up the trenches. They signed 5 offensive linemen. That's the first time they've done that since 2018. I mean, they've had some years where they've only signed 2 or 3 offensive linemen. So I think that really, they kind of factored into, Jay Cradle's going to be around, Blake Zabovic, Matt Gonsalves. Like, they had so many guys do this 5th and 6th year that they had some light recruiting classes. They only signed like 13 guys in 2022. So yeah, I mean, there was no doubt that the COVID year, the extra guys coming back, more of the transfer portal, it definitely stunted that, bringing in a full recruiting class. And I go back and forth, and we have arguments on the message boards about, like, they definitely need to sign 25 a year. And I mean, I don't disagrry with that sentiment, but, like, there's got to be a happy medium, because the transfer portal is so prevalent now. And, obviously they have 9 commitments there. So, right now, as we're looking, there's 28 new players going to be on the roster next year at least. And, they haven't even touched punter, quarterback. I mean, there's going to be over 30 new players, and that's a lot to commit to just brand new players, on a roster from year to year.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. I mean, like, I've talked so much about 19 recruits and 8 and now 9 transfers, but you're right. When you kind of had it together, I keep thinking about it as individual positions. Oh, they signed 3 linebackers. They signed, 9, 10 or 8 defensive linemen and 5 offensive linemen and all this stuff. But yeah, you're right. Like, it's damn near 30 guys joining the roster.
30
I mean, like,
out of 85.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, exactly. Like, more than 25%. I mean, like, pretty much a third of the roster is going to be just brand new this year. And some of them will have college experience, which is helpful, but, like, holy cow. I mean, that's a complete, but I guess that's what it is. I mean, I guess that's what you do nowadays, because you can, right? They took away the initial counter limits, although with so many guys enrolling early, I don't think they would have a problem with making it under the 25, because you can count players back. You were on the boards when we used to always debate about who you could count back to the previous class, weren't you? Do you remember those ongoing, always like, well, he enrolled early, so he can count his last year's, and those guys from last year could count his year. Well, they have like 9 recruits plus all the transfers enrolling early. So I don't think there's any problem with the 25 initial counters anyway. But it is crazy to turn over like a third of the roster. And they're going to need more attrition too, right? I haven't done a count lately. I mean, they need at least 3 or 4, right? Maybe 5 more to go just to fit the guys they currently have, the recruits and transfers.
I think with the commitment of Lyndon Cooper tonight, the offensive lineman, I think they're at 89. I think so. They still need 4 guys to not be on the roster, at some point, whether, some guys don't make it to campus, some other guys transfer, but I think the number is 89 right now. So, and that doesn't even account for that they probably still need to grab a quarterback, a punter, and maybe another defensive tackle. So yeah, there's going to still be a lot of movement. I think, we might see some of that like post spring ball.
They might even be more than that. Just, I found my back of the envelope, important, like, data you write on the back of an envelope that happens to be on your desk. 85 minus 11 super seniors would put him at 74. 10 transfers out, I think it was the latest number. That's 64. 19 recruits plus 64, that's 83 right there. And so 9 transfers, right?
Then you had 3 guys leave, like Bub Means, Gonsalves, Devonshire, that are like they had eligibility.
Oh, that'd be 3 more. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. So that would be so that would be 89. That would put him at 89. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. That's I was adding this back of the envelope math was before they got their last 3 transfers. So I was adding it to 6 transfers anyway, which is what, the net number ended up being here. So 89. So yeah, 4 need to go. And we are positive they're going to add more guys. So, I mean, you're looking at another at least 6 players leaving the current roster and probably more. I mean, there could be another 6 or 7, which means, you're looking at 17 transfers out, anywhere from 16 to 18 transfers out, which again, is like damn near a quarter of the roster.
Yeah.
I mean, you are just turning it over. But I guess that's, I guess credit to them for using the system, right? I mean, like you have to do it. People will say like, oh, I don't want you to build the roster off of transfers. You need to recruit high school kids and develop them. But like the system provides you the opportunity to go get Kanate Mumfield and Bub Means and Donovan McMillan, Lyndon Cooper, Marcus Minor. Like, why wouldn't you? Phil Dracovic. I mean, why wouldn't you build your roster that way? I don't know. Did you see about that they're going to allow multiple transfers? You can just transfer as many times as possible. I haven't seen the latest on the court case there. Do you have any? Have you seen anything recently about that?
I haven't, but I mean, I think that would strike into Pitt's strategy, because you look at the 9 transfers, you look at, I think they had 14 or 15 transfers on the roster last year. All but 2 of them were multi-year guys or going to be multi-year guys. So, I mean, the way you look at it in the portal, it's like, okay, I could take a high school recruit that I know nothing about that might not be here for a year, or I could take this transfer that has 2 or 3 years. And I know I absolutely have them for 2 or 3 years. But, now if you do that, you could transfer after every year. That kind of throws a wrench into that plan. But I mean, I kind of saw some value in what it was doing with how they approached the transfer portal. I mean, that's, over 20 out of 22, transfer portal guys have been multi-year guys. And I think that was on purpose. I think they weren't going after grad transfer guys. They were going after Kanade Mumfields and Donovan McMillan and guys like that.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Josh Newark says, why shouldn't they turn over the roster after 3 wins? I'm glad it's going to be hopefully drastic for next year. I don't know if it's unique to the fact that they went 3-9 this year. I don't know if it's really tied to that. I don't think they were like, holy cow, we need to revamp the roster. I think they might turn over like half the coaching staff because they went 3-9, but I don't think they're really, I mean, you look at, I don't think they pushed any of the transfers out. I think most of the guys who left either were guys they wanted back or guys who clearly saw that they weren't going to get a lot of playing time. And so I don't think they like insisted on a, roster overhaul that way. I think, well, we've got these spots, but that are available. We're going to fill them and try to rebuild, the key points that we need to rebuild. Are you surprised they only have 1 cornerback so far? I know there's a lot of questions about Nyland Green, the corner from Georgia. Who's obviously still on the board as a top target. But are you surprised they've only gotten 1 transfer corner so far?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm also a little surprised that there hasn't been like a lot of names they're linked to at cornerback. I mean, everyone kind of knows about, Nyland Green, that we believe he visited over the weekend, and he's a talented guy, a former 4 or 5 star from Georgia. And so, yeah, everyone's interested with him, but like, that's kind of the only name we're kind of like sitting on right now. So, I mean, I'm more going to pop up. I mean, more guys are going to go in the portal. It's like, that's why, I saw this week, like people were disappointed, like, oh, they missed on Sam Brumfield. I'm like, there's probably going to be a Sam Brumfield equivalent going in the portal tomorrow. I mean, it's like a never ending vortex of college football players. So,
yeah. Do you have linebacker high on your list of what Pitt needs in the portal?
No, because I've been pretty adamant this whole offseason that I really like the direction of the linebacker room, was, specifically with the young guys. I like the 3 freshmen. I like the 3 guys they signed. I like Kyle Lewis. So, I mean, I think they have a lot of things going there. So, I mean, the only question there is like, who's going to play middle linebacker next year? And like, I'm not sure Brandon George is going to start, but I think he'll, take a lot of snaps there. So one of those guys is going to have to move inside. So, I mean, I guess there is like, maybe they should look for a middle linebacker, but it's not, I think there are more pressing needs than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of agree. I assume Brandon George will probably be the guy, just because anytime, I mean, like he was the next guy in line, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I see like who would start over him. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't move Solomon DeShields inside personally. I like him outside as a playmaker out there. Maybe George could play money linebacker. Maybe Kyle Lewis could be the middle. I mean, I could see him sort of working there. I could see Jordan Bass kind of working as a middle linebacker. I think he'd be pretty interesting, but he's like a 2nd-year guy. Is he going to be ready to sort of run the defense? But I'm with you. I mean, I think even if George does start, if you have George DeShields and Lewis as your starters, Bass, Biles, and Lovelace as your backups, with the 3rd team being the freshman who came in now, I mean, That's great. And hey, maybe after the spring you can find like a Tyler Wiltz, like an FCS guy who has made a lot of tackles, a pretty productive guy who can come in and be your, fifth or sixth linebacker and potentially work his way up and be a good player for you. I mean, maybe you can find a guy like that. So I don't know. I'm with you. It's not a high priority for me. There's part of me at corner that kind of wants to see the young guys play. Like I want to see, Bigelow and Gandy and Battle and Crumpley, but also like Shadarian Harrison. I mean, they talked Shadarian Harrison up so much in that 2023 recruiting class. They were so excited about him. He was on a team with like a 5-star corner who I forget where he went or whatever. But Pat Narduzzi's like, yeah, Shadarian Harrison, he played with another guy, but we think he was even better, which of course that's what Pat Narduzzi would do. But I'd like to see them get out there. I know you want to have experience, you want to have older players out there, but it's not like Bigelow, Gandy, Crumpley, and Battle have that much experience. They're a little bit older. They've been in the defense longer, but it's not they've played a ton. Like get some of the younger guys. I don't know if Jesse Anderson's still playing corner or is playing safety, but get them on the field. I know they're bringing in a transfer, Tamon Lynham from Nebraska, but I don't know. During the season, we both agreed, like, corner, that's the number one priority. I guess if you can get Nyland Green, fine. If you get a former 4-star guy from Georgia, fine. But I don't know. I'd kind of like to see the young guys, play because I think they were pretty hyped, and I think there were high expectations for them when they came in as recruits,
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think it was on accident that the first transfer they really got this year was the Timon Lynham from Nebraska. I mean, they made it a point like, all right, like let's go get a corner right away, and that's what they did. But I'm with you. I kind of want to see some of those young guys. I mean, Rylan Gandy started to he was playing meaningful snaps towards the end of the year. I mean, it wasn't at the beginning of the year, but there was like a crucial third down, and I looked down a couple times this year. I'm like, oh, there's Rylan Gandy. Why is he out there? But it's kind of a good thing. So, and I'm with you with Shadarian Harrison. They were really high on him, and I remember that comment. I think the funny thing is that cornerback he was talking about is Cormani McLean, who is he's at Colorado now. So that's just kind of part of the ongoing petty match between Narduzzi and Deion Sanders. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, they do have some good corners, good promising young corners. We just haven't seen them. So it's like I don't necessarily know if they're bad or anything. I mean, you're going to play, Devonshire, Woods, and Williams. I mean, they're good. So I don't think that's necessarily an indictment on those guys.
Well, to be fair, Narduzzi said that about Harrison and McLean on signing day last year, and McLean had not committed to or signed with Colorado yet. So that wasn't it. Although, is there something funny about Sam Okunlola ending up at Colorado? Is there anything that amuses you about that, given Pat Narduzzi and Prime Time's history there?
I do find it a little funny, and I half wonder if he was just like, I'm going to go get him just because I can. So, but I don't know. I don't think Deion had a great signing day. I think they have five recruits right now, something like that, and their best recruit
maybe
might sign with Maryland.
I thought, didn't he flip or something like that?
He didn't sign. He did like the Jordan Addison did not sign on signing day. So
okay, didn't they had like a 5-star like offensive lineman or something, or like number 1 offensive tackle in the country or something?
Yeah, that's him. It's
okay,
Jordan Seaton.
Seaton, that's right. Oh yeah, so he's still listed as committed. I thought he. Oh yeah, wow. They only have 8 guys in their class, huh? That's crazy. But like 1, 2, 3, 4 stars and a 5-star among the 8 guys. So, and I'm sure they're loading up in the portal. I mean, I'm sure that's what he's doing, and it's what he intends to do, and it's what he'll continue to do, and makes sense. On the last thing I would say about Colorado and Sam Okunlola and whether Primetime was motivated at all by that, I wonder. Well, no, I shouldn't say I wonder. I've also been heard that Colorado was interested in other Pitt players as well. So they might just be trying to go get good players, or maybe, Deion Sanders has learned who Pat Narduzzi is and now wants to. I mean, so many people have taken shots at Deion Sanders. I can't imagine that he's actually keeping receipts on all of it, but maybe he liked it. It'll be interesting to see what Sam Okunlola does. I mean, he had 5 sacks, right?
5 sacks.
I mean, looked really promising, but
yeah,
he had 5 sacks. Is that guy going to be your starting defensive end? I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. Tito Panther wanted to know, Jim. He's a super chatter. Wants to know what's your favorite 3 places to eat in Johnstown?
3 favorite places.
Yeah, you got to pick 3.
All right. Let's see. Wings. I'll say Murphy's. Pizza. I'll say Santos. And I like Balance downtown. I think that's a nice restaurant.
Is that a nice like date place? Is that where you would take?
Yeah, one of the 3 to 4 places in Johnstown that you could do that.
That was all right. So that's the fancy. Do you have to call ahead for reservations at that place?
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay, good to know. I mean, good to know. Everybody can keep track of that. Tito Panther's got the list there of the best places to go. Of course, the best place to go. I mean, those are the best places to go to eat dinner in Johnstown. The best place to go, of course, if you want to get your health and fitness in check for the new year, is with our friend Chris Gates. Tonight's Thursday Night Live show, as always, is sponsored by Chris Gates Fitness. Chris is an online fitness coach from Pittsburgh. He's a huge Pitt fan, and he's excited to announce the coaching applications are set to open up on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. If you've been thinking about setting a New Year's resolution for your health and fitness, this is your opportunity to get on a program that actually works. Chris will help you not only make progress now, but learn how to sustain that progress long term. Pitt fans and especially Panther-Lair listeners are near and dear to Chris, so he's offering a bigger discount to you than anybody else. You get 75% off your first month of coaching. Just mention Panther-Lair when you apply. This is the biggest sale Chris runs each year, and the next one won't be for a while, so mark your calendar for January 3rd and plan to get your application in. You can apply on Chris's website, chrisgatesfitness.com/coaching. Chris works with people all over the world to build muscle, burn fat, and learn about how simple, healthy lifestyle habits can lead to a lifetime of better health and longevity. His coaching philosophy is centered around sustainability and teaching his clients how to make progress in ways that actually fit their lifestyle. He builds personalized programs for each client for both their diet and exercise. Those programs are designed to maximize enjoyment and consistency because if you enjoy it, you'll be more likely to keep showing up and put in the work. And when you do that, the sky's the limit for how much progress you can make. Chris is there every step of the way to support his clients too. You'll have regular weekly check-ins, customized video tutorials, and you can reach out to Chris at any time of day, any day of the week to get the support you need. So remember that date, January 3rd, 2024. Visit chrisgatesfitness.com/coaching to apply. On a side note, Chris has actually been sharing some client success stories recently. Mike, who's lost 25 pounds, Jim, who's lost 40 pounds. Is that you, Jim?
No, I think that's...
Do you work with Chris?
No, the one guy on Twitter, the pirate blogger.
Oh, wow. So that's weird.
I saw the testimonial.
So Jim and Chris talking about a different Jim and Chris. That's wild stuff. Either way, it's pretty cool to see how these guys have taken a slower but more sustainable approach. It's really paid off. You can read those on Chris's website, chrisgatesfitness.com. And remember, go to chrisgatesfitness.com/coaching to apply. Can you hear my dog in the background?
Kind of crying, right?
Yeah, a little bit. These two, I have 2, and these murderous SOBs got after a rabbit in the yard tonight. And
they catch it?
I think he got away, but he was like, the rabbits can usually get out under the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And the idiot beagle got close enough to get like one of his legs and hold on to him. So I didn't see this happen. My wife told me about it, but apparently there's like fur all over the backyard and the dogs were like coughing because idiots kept like swallowing fur. I haven't been out to the backyard to see what it looks like out there, but they're both in their crates and they're both like really amped up, of course, because they had a hunt tonight. And I think he wants to get out to go find the bunny, but
finish the job.
I'm never going to let him out of his crate. I'm not like, you're going to live in that crate, you bunny murdering jerk. Really upset about this. This upset everyone in the house. It's been a really troubling night tonight.
At least it's not Easter. That'd be weird.
Yeah, but still doesn't really need to be a holiday to be sad about a bunny getting killed by dogs, Like it could be like any random June 3rd or something like that. And I'd be like, oh, that's a bummer. Brock H2P says, with Lyndon Cooper on board now, let's land Nyland Green over Purdue, and I'd be thrilled. What do you think about the transfer haul so far? 9 guys. Cooper, the most recent one, offensive lineman from NC State. Overall, we did the overall thoughts on the recruiting class. What do you think of the transfers?
I think it's a good blend of, maybe some guys that can definitely help right away and maybe some guys that are, could be some big hits down the line. I mean, I think the interesting part of the whole transfer portal haul is the two guys from Western Carolina, because everyone's so interested about, what this offense is going to look like with Cade Bell. And so he's bringing his two best weapons with him. So I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if those guys are going to be, huge players next year or not, or they might be. I mean, I'm still interested to see how everyone kind of transitions from Western Carolina to the ACC. So, I mean, those guys stick out to me. And obviously, we kind of mentioned about Charlie Partridge, bringing in all those defensive line recruits, and obviously, landing guys like Nick James and Nate Matlack. I mean, it's been a good haul for him that way. So, I mean, like we've been talking all night. I think they're going to add some more. I mean, there's some obvious positions where they need to add some more talent, but I mean, I think they're definitely attacking the spots we kind of expected them to attack.
Yeah, with the Western Carolina guys, this is something I'm writing about in the 321 column tomorrow as well. And that's so I have some research here. I looked at the top 25 rushers and top 25 receivers in the ACC this year, and a good number of them were transfers. 11 of the top 25 rushers in the ACC this year were transfers, including 5 quarterbacks, actually. So five of the top 25, 5 quarterbacks who transferred ended up among the top 25 rushers in the ACC. 9 wide receivers, 9 transfers were among the top receivers in the ACC this year. Out of all those guys, those 20 transfers I just mentioned, who were among the top 25 rushers and receivers in the ACC, only 2 transferred from the FCS level. And it was Bashal Tutin, who went to Virginia Tech from North Carolina A&T and lit up Pitt, of course. And then Daquan Felton from Norfolk State went to Virginia Tech and was one of the top 25 wide receivers. So that doesn't mean anything about Desmond Reed and Sincere Lee. Like, those guys may or may not succeed. Obviously, Cade Bell thinks they can succeed. Just saying that there hasn't been a lot of, it's hard to predict how it's going to translate, and there's not exactly a lot of precedent for it translating. I'm a little concerned about the size. I think those guys both have speed. I think you can see the speed, but they're not very big. Particularly Reed is small. I think he's listed at 5'8" on the Western Carolina site, and usually you can take like official listed heights and weights and subtract, an inch or two off the height. So I mean, he might be like shorter than Vincent Davis, realistically, which is a little bit of a concern. Not that short guys can't make plays, but he's not big, and I don't think Sincere Lee is all that big either, but they made a lot of plays and put up a lot of numbers. And obviously, like I said, like, Cade Bell believes in him. So I guess if you're Pat Narduzzi and you believe in Cade Bell and Cade Bell believes in those guys, then you bring him in. I don't think either one needs to be the leading guy, though, right? Like, they've got Rodney Hammond back. They've got Kanate Mumfield back. They've got Dejon Reynolds, and they've got Kenny Johnson. So you're not really depending on those guys like you might have been, when you brought in Mumfield, or you brought in, whoever as a transfer. Just a brief aside about the running back situation. That's really annoying about the dog. I might ask some like broad open-ended question and let you just talk for a while I go over and let him out of his crate. But running back wise, I'll come back and be like, oh, Jim, that was a great point. Really good, really interesting stuff. You just have to keep talking until I return to my chair. Rodney Hammond, obviously, but how does that depth play out? Like, does Derek Davis figure in? Montravius Lloyd, Reed, Jewel's golf? Did you know it's Jewel's, Jim?
Oh yeah.
You did?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You didn't tell me this. You knew this, that it was Jewel's. How did you know it was Jewel's?
I forget where I think I watched like one of his high school games, like a YouTube broadcast or something like that.
And they said Jewel's.
Yeah.
Wow. Pat Narduzzi said that yesterday. Well, at first he said Jewel's golf. And I'm like, oh, this idiot. It's Jules Goff. And he called him Jewel's golf. No, well, he got it half right. And the half that I've been getting wrong. So anyway, what's the running back depth? I mean, how does this play out?
I'm interested to see myself. I mean, obviously Hammond's probably going to be the guy, but beyond that, I mean, I guess Daniel Carter's still around, but he's still a fullback that's kind of listed as a running back. I mean, Derek Davis never really showed any signs of breaking into the rotation, even whenever they were struggling and looking for answers. So, I mean, it's hard to count on him, but they did seem to like Montravius Lloyd, and he was like on the travel roster. He was with the team all year. So, I mean, I think in a pinch, they could maybe go to him and maybe he develops. But I'm interested as well. But I'm very high on Goff. He's one of my top recruits in this class. I think he's a playmaker. Um, he kind of overlooked. He kind of reminds me of Kenny Johnson, maybe because he's from the same area. They're both from York, PA, and maybe nobody recruits York, PA. But I think Kenny Johnson looked pretty good, and I think Goff could be pretty good too.
Good enough to be like the number 3 back, the number 2 back.
I don't see why not. I mean, I think freshman, like a running back's a position. Can you hear my, I'm getting like a million texts. Can you hear that?
No, none of it. Who's texting you? Are you getting info? Are you getting anything we need to talk about? Or something you need to go post on the board?
No, it's just, it's Noah Hiles and Stephen Thompson just blowing up my phone again.
God, those two. Maybe what are they about? Should I send the link to Noah and bring him in here and tell him that if he's going to keep texting you, he needs to just come and talk about whatever he's got to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think I should?
Yeah, see if he'll hop on.
Okay. Now, what were you going to say? I forgot what I've been asking you. Oh, about running backs. Running backs can be.
I think freshmen. I think that's a position where you could come in. I mean, obviously, we've seen in the past where Andre Powell says, "Well, they're not good enough pass blockers, so we can't get them on the field." But I mean, I still think that's a position where running back, and you can go and make plays and kind of do your thing. So I think he's a gifted playmaker, and I think he's the type of guy you want to just put the ball in his hands and let him run.
Yeah, because I think Rodney Hammond could be really good, but it's like
I thought he could be really good last year too.
Is he going to be out there for 12 games? Is he going to? And I'm not. Again, we've said it. We both believe like injury prone. That's not a thing. Guys aren't, this and that. I mean, I think it was just weird personnel decisions that mostly kept him off the field. But you're going to need somebody else though. And the more I think about it, I'm just not like, I'd like to see Derek Davis get a shot. I'm curious, and maybe it won't amount to anything, but I'm curious. And then beyond that, I just don't know. I guess Goff could be an option. Maybe Desmond Reed's an option. I don't know. It's like basketball here. Wolf HD wants to know or says, opines that I think what Pitt Hoops is missing is Bub Carrington hitting his threes. Bub shoots like 6 threes a day, and it's been really cold the last few games, which has slowed the offense a lot. We didn't even. Noah said he's not in the best frame of mind to be on camera at the moment.
Fair.
What does he think? I mean, like, what frame of mind does he think I'm in?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's now I really want him to join. Actually, I'm gonna say while I'm talking about the game last night, you should text him again and tell him he should definitely join the live stream. We tell him we only have like 15 minutes left anyway, so we won't keep him for more than just a couple minutes. It'd be great if he's at like a bar or something, Like, what do we think Noah Hiles is doing on a Thursday night? He's probably out watching like Thursday Night Football, right? He's probably out with Carter and watching. He should definitely join. That would be awesome. No, but last night was such a wild game. Those two teams, like Pitt and Purdue Fort Wayne, combined averaged 23s per game, and they made 7.
Yeah,
they missed their first 20 between the two of them. It was ridiculous. It was some of the worst shooting I've ever seen. They could not hit anything, and Pitt only scored because they had the size advantage inside, and they were able to work the ball down low and get rebounds and score that way. I mean, it was a disaster. I mean, one-off bad night, right? I mean, we're not going to overreact to that shooting performance, are we? Or are we going to take that as a bit of a concern?
I don't really put too much stock into it. I mean, that team's never going to shoot like 10% in a game from 3 again. Blake Hinson's not going to have 5 points in a game. Like, those are just like weird things that aren't going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think there's been a couple games with Wolf HD saying, Bub has missed some shots that he normally makes. And, we kind of want to, whenever you get in the ACC play, we kind of want to see him to do that. So, I mean, I think that's part of it. But I don't know. Sometimes that game right before Christmas, like those guys like hop on planes and go home like immediately after the game. And I think that sometimes can lend to a sloppy game that pre-Christmas break, that post-finals game. Like these two games are always tricky. And I think we can call that.
But I mean, it's like, this is the game right before Christmas break and the students aren't there. Oh, that was the game right before finals. Oh, that's again. They played 3 games in a week. Like they've only played like 12 games. Right. And I feel like we've had a lot of excuses. Like, I mean, like, and maybe they're valid and maybe they're not, but I mean, like, how many different things are we going to hear about? Like, oh, the Syracuse game, it's going to be their first game in 10 days and everybody's still getting, I mean, like, right. At some point, man, you just got to go out and like play good basketball and be focused and play well. And it's a little concerning that they couldn't find a way to, just be better and be more focused. I mean, they were just so sloppy and careless with that game last night, and both teams were. I mean, it wasn't just Pitt, Purdue, Fort Wayne too. I mean, in the early minutes, I think both teams had a travel where a guy just took a step. Like, he didn't, like, it wasn't anything weird. He just took a step, and both teams had a time where a guy just stepped out of bounds, like, not like anything crazy, not lost his balance or was running too fast and couldn't stop. He was just standing there and just stepped out of bounds. What Ishmael Leggett did it for Pitt, and one of the guys did it for Purdue for Wayne. It's like, what's going on here? Like, I know the crowd is dead, but you guys can still play basketball hard. You don't have to take it easy. Bub Carrington, I keep feeling like he's just going to keep getting better. Like, I'm not really too concerned about his play of late. I think he's a talented player. I think he's continuing to find out how he fits and where he fits and what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. I think Zach Austin too. I asked him last night, like, is there just sort of a period of finding out how aggressive to be and how assertive to be and when to be aggressive and when to be assertive? And he said, yeah, that's a big part of it for him. And he's actually shown up. I mean, Zach Austin's been pretty good since he got benched, which is funny. I thought about this, Jim. I kept saying, and a few other people said, sort of like, Zach Austin coming in looked like he might be like a taller Nike Sabandi. Well, one of the best things Nike Sabandi did was provide that spark off the bench. I mean, maybe that's what Austin can give them, and he might play 20 minutes a night, but just coming off the bench and giving them sort of a spark and a boost and some extra energy. I wouldn't hate that role for him. I think he can fit it pretty well, actually.
No, I don't think that's a bad role for him. I mean, like, my biggest concern with this team has been finding like that fourth guy that you could definitely count on to score. And they don't really have that right now. I mean, you look at last year's team. I mean, there was like stretches last year where like there would be like 5 games and 5 different leading scorers. I mean, they had 5 guys that could go off and score 20 points in the night. And this year they have 3. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but like there's times where you want to see Zach Austin have a big game on a more consistent basis. You want to see Guillermo put up numbers so, I mean, I still think they're kind of finding that, but, you kind of wish, heading into conference play, they would have found it already. And I don't think they have.
Yeah. I wonder if Austin can be that guy when he gets so much. It feels like a lot of his production comes from sort of like chaos points. You know what I mean? Whether it's fast break, transition, second chance, whatever, out of a turnover or sloppy, you know what I mean? Like it feels, I don't know, chaos points is the best way I can say it, but I kind of like that term. I don't know, is there a more basketball official term for that? Like ugly points, junk points, you know what I mean? Like not in the regular flow of the offense. Like I don't feel like they're running many plays for Zach Austin, but he can get like 12 or 14 points getting out in transition or getting second chance putbacks or, an alley-oop or something like that.
No, and I mean, I think they need guys like that because, I mean, I think the way that their big three is constructed is, Bob's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. Blake's going to take a lot of threes. Leggett's going to the basket. I mean, those 3 guys, you kind of know what they're doing. So, I mean, I think it's more of a matter of those 2 other spots on the floor kind of filling in the gaps like that. I mean, I think that's kind of what you want from, your big guy. And I mean, I think Guillermo provides a lot more offense than Federico. So, I mean, I think they're kind of starting to get more of that. But yeah, that Zach Austin, Will Jeffress role, I mean, Will Jeffress is never really going to score 10 or 12 points in a game. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So, I mean, I think if Zach Austin could do that, I mean, that's what they're looking for from him. That's what he was brought here to do. So, hopefully for them, that happens in January.
Back to signing day here for a little bit. Homer Simpson says, if I had to give the recruiting class a ranking, I would give it a C-. 10 years ago, it would have been a B+. Great players on the defensive side of the ball, but defense no longer wins championships. It's an interesting sort of makeup for this class where you've got basically 10 linemen between the 2 sides of the ball, right? Effectively 5 on each side, although Maurice Schmerenzer could go one way or the other. You've got 10 linemen and 3 linebackers, and that's 13 out of your 19 guys in the class. You have 1 receiver, 1 running back. in the recruiting class. And so I think that's what Homer's getting at. But I think you have to think of it in terms of not just this one class, but in terms of a cycle. And last year, they signed 4 receivers and 2 running backs. You know what I mean? I think I think they still need to keep getting more receivers. I think they needed more than one in this class. I think they wanted more than one in this class. I think they were trying to get more than one in this class. But it's okay to get one because you signed so many guys last year. You can't do it again next year. Next year, you got to get 2 or 3 receivers. And obviously, you lost one of the running backs that you signed last year. But, and then even then, I mean, you look, they tried to get 2 running backs in this class. So I think they wanted more on the offensive side, but because they signed so many last year, they were able to get away with it and not really get away with not emphasizing the skill players, but get away with emphasizing the linemen. I think that's what this class was about restocking the lines, which they did with a ton of numbers.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you almost have to look at recruiting classes as like a 2-year cycle. It's like, because you kind of build off of what you do last year. And like you said, like they got all these receivers and only one of them kind of burned his red shirt. So they have 3, they're going to have 4 scholarship receivers with freshman eligibility to start this year, which is still fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I thought they were going to get another receiver after Day Farmer decommitted. I thought there was going to be more of an emphasis on replacing him, and that, you know, there just really wasn't. I mean, I think they kind of tried to make a few pushes here in the past week or two, but like the Day Farmer thing happened like before the season, and like they had all year to like maybe figure something out, and it just never seemed like they did. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think they could have added a second receiver, and they probably should have.
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably, and unless they just felt like they had a luxury of having signed so many guys. But even then, when you know the guys transfer, I don't think you can really, even if you sign 4 linebackers one year, I don't think you can really count on having all 4 of those guys for the next 3 years. Homer Simpson follows up and says, you got to score points nowadays. Hopefully Julian, the quarterback out of Penn Hills, can turn out to be a diamond in the rough. Julian and I assume he says T.Y. I assume he means Ty Diefenbach, look like the best quarterback for the next system. For the new system. I don't know. I haven't. Do you have a thought on which quarterback fits? Do you think Ty? Do you think he means Ty Diefenbach, or do you think he means Nate Yarnell? What's your guess on that?
I'm guessing he capitalized. He capitalized both. Yeah, I don't know.
And then there's this whole singular thing, like singular verb looks like the best quarterback. Let's just say Julian. Do you feel like Julian Duggar is the best quarterback? Have you watched Western Carolina's offense enough to have the opinion that Julian Duggar is the best quarterback for that offensive scheme?
I haven't.
Nope, me neither. Let's see. Tito Panthers is a super chatter again. He says, would be interested to see an article year by year if you think Pitt won or lost in the portal. Well, there's been 3 years of the portal, basically. Keaton Slovis year, was that really the first year of the transfer portal, or the year before?
I'm trying to. Who was the transfers on those?
Well, they brought in Lucas Krull prior to 2020.
Yeah, like they've always like kind of used the transfer even before it was called the portal. I mean, like this staff definitely was on top of that, like Lucas Krull and Kylan Johnson and guys like that. Or, you know, some of those linemen they had, like Millen and Ulizio. I mean, they've always been pretty open to transfer. So it's kind of like hard to like remember when like the whole transfer portal era kind of started.
October 2018.
Okay, so
the transfer portal launched on October 15th, 2018 to manage and facilitate the process for student athletes seeking to transfer between member institutions. So since then, guys who joined Pitt for the 2019 season. So I'd have to think back to the 19. I mean, I remember Krull, Johnny Patrician.
19, that might have been like Will Gragg.
Ooh, yeah. Deep pool. Nakia Griffin-Stewart.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Pretty much just like any tight end they've had the past 10 years as a transfer.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. It was everybody other than Gavin Bartholomew. I mean, has been a transfer. Carter Johnson, Nakia Griffin-Stewart, and Will Gragg, like we mentioned. Matt Flanagan, Krull, Chris Clark.
I thought Chris Clark was going to be good.
Man,
I don't know.
Yeah, didn't work out. Year by year, Pitt won the portal. I mean, I think they've done fine. I think they've had a good approach to it. They haven't always gotten the number one guy out of the portal, but I think they've gotten decent contributions. I mean, if we work back, because it's easier to think this way, I think Donovan McMillan was a good portal pickup. I think Bub Means ended up being a good portal pickup. Kanate Mumfield was a good portal pickup. You go on the offensive line, I think Marcus Minor was. I guess, well, October 18 means Stefano Millen wasn't a transfer portal pickup because he played in 2018. So maybe not really many other offensive linemen. Because you remember that Nolan Elizio guy who played for them in 2019?
Marcus Minor was good.
Yeah. Minor was good, but I think he was like the only real offensive line transfer so far. Jacoby is supposed to be good, Ryan Jacoby, but it hasn't really happened. Keldrick Wilson didn't do anything. But I mean, I think that, Shane Simon was a good pickup. Kylan Johnson was a good pickup. That would have been the 2019 season. I think they've generally done well. I think your vision can get clouded by like Keaton Slovis and Phil Dracovic and Christian Bayer, but I think they've largely done well. I think they've filled holes when they've needed to fill holes, and they've gotten pretty good. Taysier Mack, although Mack was pre because he was on the team in 18. Yeah, so
DJ Turner was good.
DJ Turner was good. Yeah, so I think they've
They've done pretty well.
Have they won the portal? I don't know if they've won the portal or lost the portal, but I mean, I think they've been good. They've navigated it well, and they've gotten what they've needed to get, and I think they've had this is probably their, I guess. All right, we will fill Tito's request and do a year by year.
Who's writing it? You or me?
Well, so I have somewhere like a year or so ago, I ranked like the 25 transfers Pitt had gotten under Pat Narduzzi. So I could start with that list, and it would only leave like a year or two that I need to fill in. Yeah, I ranked all 25. That actually went well. I forget who I put number 1. It should be obvious, but I'm not going to look it up now. But so I can work from that. All right, I'll take that writing assignment. I will rank all the transfers and decide whether or not Pitt won in the portal. But off the top of your head, does this feel like the best transfer class they've gotten?
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's 9, and there's probably going to be, 10, 11, 12, something like that. So.
At key positions. They address key positions. I mean, they refilled and reloaded the defensive line room. And, Reed and Lee, to me, are just gravy lottery tickets. You know what I mean? But you bring in a good offensive lineman. You bring in a good corner. I tell you, the Kansas State transfer, Nate Matlack, I think is really, really intriguing. 4 sacks and 7.5 tackles for loss last year, which you say, well, that's not very much, but it would have been tied for third most on Pitt's roster. And he did it playing in a 3-man front. Yeah. Kansas State, they run that 3-3-5 defense. And so, you saw that quotes that he gave me. And, he got that production. He basically performed at or around the same level as Deion Hayes, despite not playing in a defense that featured the defensive end as a pass rusher. So, okay, I'll take that. He's a guy who's played, he'll be a 5th-year senior this year in 24. Yeah, I'll take an experienced guy with a decent amount of production in the Big 12. Sure. Playing in a pass rushing defensive end spot. So I'm intrigued by him. I think maybe even a little bit more than David Ojebwe for this season, just because Ojebwe is young, and I feel like he's probably going to take a little bit of time, but I think he could be good. Any expectations for what's his first name? Jake Overman, Jack Overman, Nate Overman, the tight end from Oregon State. Jake Overman. It's Jake Overman. He pretty much only run blocked according to Pro Football Focus. So that's his game.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to him. Like these days are all running together. I think I talked to him on Tuesday. He started 8 games for Oregon State throughout his career. I mean, he's been on the field. I mean, he hasn't been like a huge pass catching threat, but I mean, he's not supposed to be the number 1 tight end next year. He's probably not even supposed to be the number 1 tight end next year or the year after. I mean, he's in there. He's the replacement for Malcolm Epps. He's the 2nd or 3rd tight end. I mean, that's kind of what he is, and he has starting experience. So I think that's still, at the end of the day, if that's your 3rd tight end who has started some games, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I think we're just about to 9 o'clock here. We've almost made our full hour. Jim, any good plans for the weekend, for the holiday?
I guess I have to go back and read these text messages from Noah and Steven and see what they had to say.
That's what you're going to do on Christmas?
No, I guess I'll go somewhere and do something. I don't know yet.
Noah said they are arguing about Steeler wide receivers.
Yeah, I kind of like I'm kind of I don't even know if I want to get into like the Antonio Brown, Juju, George Pickens debate, but yeah, I might.
Martavis Bryant, Chase Claypool. The list goes on and on.
They have
Antonio
a lot of guys.
Holmes. It's been a while. Look, I mean, wide receiver has clearly been established as the position for weirdos. You know what I mean? Like over the past 10 years, 15 years, it has been clearly established. And I don't think anything seems to be changing there. Well, you enjoy reading those text messages. I'm sure it'll be an enlightening experience. And have a great holiday weekend and everything like that. Take a couple days. We'll start writing about Pitt stuff again next week. But thank you, Jim, for hanging out tonight. Thanks to everybody who came and hung out on the live stream and comments and questions and all those things that you guys do. We appreciate it as always. Coming on a unique night, Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Different night, different time, same fun. So thanks everybody who tuned in. Make sure you stay tuned. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like the video and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. And then check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks, everybody. We'll have another morning pit for you tomorrow, and then it's the weekend, the holiday weekend. So enjoy it, and we will talk to you tomorrow for the morning pit and next Wednesday night, I think, for the Panther-Lair Show. So have a great weekend, have a great holiday, and we will see you.